Kent admitted to smoking grass, shooting a little speed, and snorting or smoking coke when he could afford it. He was a natural busybody and seemed to know everything that happened on Hollywood's streets, including the name of every active drug dealer. So Tomek fed his fantasy to fight the never-ending battle for truth, justice, and the American way, and got a lot of useful information in return. It was cold, and the wind was picking up on the roof. Josie zipped up her leather jacket and brushed off the top of the wall with her gloved hand before sitting where she could watch the ladder. 20 minutes later, she saw a figure moving around the dumpster in the alley. Whoever it was pulled down the fire escape steps and started to climb up. Bundled in his parka, Tomek was sitting on a short stack of wooden pallets and leaning against her leg. She figured he'd probably heard the noisy ladder moving, but tapped him on the head anyway, and he grunted while getting to his feet. Like most older street cops, his body had been abused not only by police work, but by hard living. "Finally," he said a few seconds later, helping the bigger man pull himself up and onto the roof. "Where have you been? 10 means 10, not 10:30 or 11. "Sorry, Detective Tomek. You know I got so much freaking shit to deal with, sir," Kent said in his surprisingly high voice while brushing dirt off his pants and smiling at Josie. He shook his head and, leaning closer to her, whispered, "Still can't freaking believe you're no lady cop." The temperature had dropped enough that she could see puffs of cold air as he spoke. But all he wore were Levi's and a tight short-sleeved t-shirt, which she knew was intended to show off his bulging biceps. His acne-scarred complexion and tiny voice told her he owed most of his muscle mass to steroids. "What have you got for us?" she asked, as the snitch sat beside her on the wall. Her partner was looking at his watch and clearly ready to go. Josie was tired too, but lately the prospect of a dope arrest seemed to trump everything else in her world. "I wouldn't have drug you up here unless I got something big," Kent mumbled with a manufactured East Coast accent he'd picked up in some gangster movie. He was born and raised in Southern California. "Okay, so what the fuck you got?" Tomek asked impatiently. "It's what you got that's fucked," he said, pausing for dramatic effect before adding, "Bunch of cops dealing crack." He began rubbing his arms as if he'd suddenly felt the cold. "What cops?" Josie asked, sliding off the wall. He had her attention. "Don't know no freaking names, but I can take you to a guy who does for $50. 30's mine, 20 for him." "Let's go," Tomek ordered, grabbing Kent's massive arm with both hands and attempting to drag him off the wall. Kent pulled away, nearly knocking Tomek over, and said, "Not now, boss. He ain't gonna be there till tomorrow. Won't tell me where there is yet." "Who is this guy?" Josie asked. "Can't say. I'll call you in the morning, but for now, I gotta go." "Can't or won't?" Kent climbed back over the side and onto the ladder. "Can't. Promised. But you'll understand when you meet him," he said, winking at her and disappearing below the wall. Chapter 2. By the time Tomek drove Josie the few blocks back to the narcotics office parking lot, it was nearly midnight and the building was dark and locked. She was tempted to walk across Wilcox to the Hollywood police station and sleep in the officer's cot room, but she had promised her son she'd be home for breakfast. It was the first day of school, and she wanted to be with him when the bus got there. He'd been complaining they didn't spend enough time together anymore. David was only 7, but old enough to realize his mother was different from other moms. None of those women made lunch with a 9mm semi-auto Beretta strapped on her hip. Her husband was good about filling in, and his mother lived close enough to help, but the boy wanted her, and she knew not being there enough was making him unhappy. She could smell the stench from the roof that had saturated her clothes and hair, but the narco building didn't have a shower. They were lucky to have a sink and toilet. It was a rundown city facility behind the Hollywood Division gas pumps and housed 2 of the 4 West Bureau narcotics squads, Hollywood and Venice, with more than a dozen scruffy men and 2 females, her and the secretary. They had to pick up after themselves because the city's maintenance crew frequently refused to clean the mouse-infested pig pen. After Tomek dropped her off and drove away,